After the assassination of Walter Lübcke, a local politician and a member of Angela Merkel's party, the Union, left is in an overdrive to find any person they can make responsible for this action. The man who shot the politician is a former neo-Nazi, as the media says, and he had not been a criminal or he had not been under surveillance by the authorities for at least 10 years. So it is not clear if he still had connections to the neo-Nazi movement, if he had changed his mind in general. All we know so far is that he had a background in that movement, and he may just as well have moderate views outside his violent approach on everything else. We don't know. What we do know is the motivation, and that is that Mr. Lübcke was a strong proponent of migration. And what's more, he made a questionable statement, and that was, if you do not like that millions of people enter the country, you can leave it. And the left is using this as as an excuse to kind of draw the line between all neo-Nazis to all conservatives, and also from how this one quote that is outrageous and caused some outrage at the time is the reason, or that the outrage of for it was the reason for the murder. So it is not the quote. Of course, they would not make the politician responsible for his own murder, but it is people hating on the internet, and I will go into this hate speech thing in a second. Outside the potential motivation that he is a complete nutcase still in the neo-Nazi ideology, or that he could just be an anti-immigration zealot who seeks the wrong ways to go after politics. There's also a third reason, a third motivation that is not discussed, and that is, if you tell any person that he must leave the country where his family lived for hundreds of years, he becomes really angry. You know, deny people their home, their food and their sex, and they go nuts. And why do they go nuts? Because all mammals do. You know, you can go to the squirrels, you can go to the rodents, you can go to every single mammal. We are all territorial. We are all defending our homes, and this is how we have evolved for millions and millions and millions of years. So what is the likely reason for the murder? Facebook comments. Exactly. So what they are now going after is hate speech, and Facebook, I mean, is already cooperating. They are now they have now announced that they are going to cooperate with the French government and will report hate speakers to the authorities. Nick Clegg, who is a member of the Liberal Party in the UK and was the leader of the Liberal Party of the UK, is the advisor of Facebook. I mean, in the UK, liberal means still libertarian somewhat. I mean, in America, the word has shifted from liberal to libertarian because the left has occupied the word liberal, like they have occupied the word Democrats and democratic. So Americans speak of libertarian, but Nick Clegg claimed to have been still somewhat libertarian liberal. And he is now for handing over people to the authorities, to the French authorities, because of their speech. Madness. Okay. So I have already discussed in an earlier video that left likes to make overgeneralizations, and that it drives me nuts. It is a sign that we are going backwards in history to the Middle Ages, where people were talking about the cardinal sins, which were also about common human traits that everybody has. And if you find a situation that you do not like, you can always point to a person that has any of these traits and claim that you have found the cause. But with those causes that are so general, you will never come to any solutions to the problem. So we are becoming dumber. And this is why I want to talk about language right now, because our thinking is in a strong way affected of what words we use and how capable they are to identify a problem and to grapple with the ideas, right? And if we can come to solutions. And the left is on purpose speaking about hate all the time, which is driving everybody crazy, that people are fearful. We have the left in Germany claiming that authoritarians are playing with fear all the time, and that's true, by the way. It is a propaganda technique to play with fear, and Angela Merkel is doing that all the time, playing with fear. However, that is then a tactic. You try to stump up a mass panic because of some shit that does not exist. Like, oh, maybe the epidemic was caused by Jews poisoning the well. That is fear. That is how authoritarians work. Okay? Greta Thunberg, I want you to panic right now. That is authoritarians trying to play with your emotions, with your fears. But when the left uses the word fear, they are pointing to actual risks, like Muslims coming into the country in large numbers, or socialism is taking root in the country and is threatening our economy. Real risks. And then they say, oh, those who talk about these real risks are playing with your fears. They are playing with your fears. The rise of authoritarianism and the threat to lose our democracy forever is a real threat, and they claim this is just playing with fears. Now Greta Thunberg is playing with fears because there is no big change in the climate to be expected. Even the left says it's just about 1 or 2 degrees from the industrialization onwards to today. The change had been 1 degree if everything was measured correctly, which is another question, now never to be answered. Yes, we are talking about a potential hike of 2 degrees that may or may not be bad. Plus, we cannot think of how the dynamics of how the humans will react plays into this. I can just as much imagine that we will do something else, that we will all use technologies at some level that may counteract this. We use different chemicals that may cool down the climate, and that we may just have another scenario where they all shriek and start talking about the cooling, and that we are going to have as bad weather as prior to the industrialization. So here we are stuck. Hate is all bad and fear is all bad, and they are the 2 things they have identified so far. And hate speech is then the next step, which makes to language. And we have already stopped thinking about this, but hate speech is such a child language, it is ridiculous. We are now using words that 5-year-olds would create. Hate speech, plus bad. And over the last 20 years or so, we are seeing a rise of the word negativity that I find quite peculiar and reflects upon these things as well. This is not a propaganda technique, but I think that's even more worrisome because it reflects how we are becoming dumber. Language, as I said, is how we conceptualize the world, and if we replace words that had been very specific, very on the target, and could be used to identify different moods, are replaced by something that is as vague as negativity, we are becoming dumber, and significantly so. Negativity, what does it mean? It means minus feel good. or in true newspeak Orwellian would be double minus feel good. There was this entire range of emotions from fear again, anger, hate, that is now negativity. And this leaves less options for somebody who feels negativity to react to it, to find a solution. I have heard this phrase, that brings too much negativity in my life, or that person is too much negativity for my life. So that means you are unable to deal with that situation or with that person, and that therefore you are not even a man anymore or a person of character. You cannot address whatever issues you have because you just see negativity, and all you have is fleeing, escape. That's your reaction to it. Another word is anger. We have a smear word in German now that speaks of a citizen who's angry as an anger citizen, a Wutbürger, anger citizen. So you can't even address what the person is angry about. You do not care anymore about the details. So what all these baby language word creations have in common is they take away complexity that we were used to for centuries and that we had good words for, and reduce it to easy understandable concepts like good feeling, bad feeling, happy or not happy. And there are even studies by the United Nations about happiness reports. That is, we see. I have gone to the Wikipedia page, and the happiness study shows just one ranking of countries for 2017, and for all other years it was left open. Why was it left open? Because they do not have proper data. I was looking into the reports, and I did not find the rankings of the nations. They have some changes from between the years, but it isn't really clear what they are comparing, and one wonders if they make this annual poll internationally, why is it so hard for them to present the raw data? And if that is even too much to ask for, why don't they just present the country ranks? And the answer really is because they notice that their report is rubbish. Polls are not as accurate, and if you are asking for a concept that is so fuzzy as happiness, you are ending up with with ranks that change from year to year inexplicably, right? So the concept of happiness is so vague that leftists love it, including David Cameron of the Tories. What this oversimplification does is that it takes away our intellectual ability to tackle the problem. If we can only talk about happiness or unhappiness, about anger, or not even anger, just negativity, then we are defenseless against the reality as it is presented to us. That was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.